someone would expect a low quality drum to be cheap and a high quality drum to be expensive. And the challenge is to be able to differentiate myself, my products from other products that already exist, to the point that someone not only trusts my product, but they're willing to pay the money to play it. At the moment, I'm making drums that price range wise could be considered high end, but the actual quality and the differentiation from what else is on the market, they don't necessarily stand out a whole lot. The main factor for that is that people don't understand, particularly in Australia, they don't understand what steambent drums are. They don't understand the value of them. So that's the constant challenge for me, is trying to educate people on what that is and why you may want that, without coming across as though I think that they're the best or that they're better than anything else, because that's definitely not something that I believe. It's just the product that I've chosen to make is a steambent drum. So trying to educate people on what the product is and why it's worth what it's worth is the hard part. I don't have the economy of scale behind me. I'm making everything one piece at a time. It takes a while to make, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of expertise, and a lot of people don't expect that. They don't want that. They want a low price and a good quality product. And those are the kinds of people that I am not trying to serve. I'm trying to serve customers that understand the value in a handmade product. And so the problem that I've been consistently facing is that I have these drums that, for all intents and purposes, other than the drum shell, are kind of a mid-range-ish product, maybe mid to high-end product. So like for instance, the hoops and the drum heads and the snare strainer and everything is not necessarily that far off from a drum that you could pay a lot less money for. So the solution in my mind is to go further down the high-end route in terms of bringing the production of those parts either in-house or locally source them, which is a major part of my business model, to locally source parts and make as much of it in-house as possible. So that's definitely the plan moving forward, is to push further into the high end of the market and see what happens. It's always a risk, but if I was to continue in the current fashion, I think it would be a major grind, and I'd either have to lower my prices to the point where it just wouldn't be worth it for me to do, or just kind of wait around and see what happens, which is not necessarily like I want to do either. So I'm willing to take the risk and push it down that route and see where I get to. I have this kind of idea in my mind of the kinds of drummers that I want to be playing my drums, and I have no idea if that's even something that someone would be able to tell from the outside from the drums that I make, or if they just think, these are just drums made for people who like high-end drums or whatever. But it's changed the way that I listen to those particular drummers that I'm into, in that I pay particular attention to the types of drums that they use, the sizes of those drums, the configurations that they're playing. I'm a particular fan of like a very effect type drums, although I haven't really delved into that very far. So that's really the only way that it's changed the way that I listen, and it's, I guess, more paying attention to the gear that people use. I suppose I listen to drummers differently, in the sense that when I'm having a conversation with them, I listen to the things that they would tell me about what they like and dislike about their gear, and just take mental note. There's some products that I have in the pipeline that are particularly focused on improving the experience of being a gigging drummer, rather than just improving drums themselves. So things like making it easier to load in and out of gigs, being able to play drums that are very high quality, but also aren't extremely heavy or difficult to load in and out. Just things like that, things that if I put myself in those shoes, which I have been, if I think back to the time when I was playing quite a lot, I would definitely enjoy those kinds of products. So I suppose that's how it's changed the way that I listen to music and drummers. When I looked at the Australian market for drums, one of the things that I noticed, this wasn't by my own observation, I have to give credit to my teacher, Dave Sanders, for this, but I noticed that there was no one offering steambent drums in Australia, first and foremost. And secondly, there wasn't really anyone pushing the boundaries of custom drum building in the sense that some companies would in the US, like Love Custom Drums or Cherry Hill Drums. Cherry Hill Drums being a major inspiration for me, he hand makes all of the hardware for his drums. He also crafts the shells himself, and so I kind of started formulating this business model that I'm still working toward. I suppose it's like a goal of mine to get to this point where I have a drum where every single part is a part that I've designed and had made, even down to the screws that are going into the shell to attach the lugs to the shell. I'm working towards having a series of drums that are 100% Australian made. So that's kind of the next frontier for me, and that goes along again with the concept of pushing further into the high end. So I've designed a snare strainer. I'm going to be hand making the snare wires. The lugs, I already have a source of those. I've designed those, and I've got an altered design for this particular series of drums. The badges are already made in Australia. The timber is obviously all Australian timbers. The wood finish that I currently use is made in Australia. So I'm just slowly ticking off item by item and leaving absolutely no stone unturned in creating a drum that is 100% made in Australia. And that goes hand in hand with this idea that I want to push further into the high end, and then I will truly be offering something that no one else is. I suppose currently I still definitely am, then that's what that statement means on the website. I'm offering something that no one else is, because there's no one in Australia making steambent drums, and there's no one in the world with access to the timbers that I have that is making them in a steambent format. So the shell alone is a very unique item and the integral part of my business. So pushing that further, pushing the boundary, is the thing that I'm going to do in order to further differentiate myself from other drum builders, particularly in Australia. It will definitely mean a price that some people might find cost prohibitive, which is fine because there's many other companies around that will be able to offer those people a drum that fits their price bracket. Currently, there's no one in Australia offering drums of the caliber that I plan to make, so that's where it's headed. Definitely. So when I started studying at JMI, I had very little concept of the practice of practicing. It's definitely a learned skill, and it's something that I resisted quite a lot at first, and then found it intensely satisfying to practice regularly and in depth and push myself to learn things. And not only that, but to realize that I could play things that I thought that I never could, if I stayed committed and practiced and pushed myself with some amount of consistency. And when I started my business, I didn't know how to steam bend drums. I had not steam bent anything in my life. I just thought that it was something that I could figure out if I applied the same persistence and consistency to figuring that out as I did to practicing drums. So I definitely translated that discipline, and there were very real moments where I utilized that in order to keep myself going when I was more or less ready to kind of give up on the whole process. So that's a big yes.